We are, however, at the crossroads of our civilization, and it's about time people understood that the game has changed. And I would dare submit to you that these two platforms, Google and YouTube, collectively would rank higher by a wide margin as a much better repository of knowledge than every institution of learning to have ever existed combined. How does one arm themselves and get ready for the future that lies ahead? The answer is simple. The days of higher education and higher learning are officially over. So for the most of recent history, and by recent history I mean the last few hundred years, there has been a direct proportional relationship between one's educational level and how well they get to do in society, their status in society, and of course the quality of life they get to lead. And by that token, of course, the norm generally has been that the more education you get, the more degrees you get underneath your belt, determines just how well of a life you get to lead, all right? And as a consequence, therefore, those who get to put in more years in universities tend to occupy the higher ranks of society. And by that, I'm talking surgeons and medical doctors and lawyers and attorneys and judges and engineers and professors, of course. These are people who, for the most part, put in so many years in institutions of higher learning. And as a reward for that, society compensates them with all these glorious positions of society. So for the most part of the last few centuries, these people have had the most respect in society simply by virtue of their educational levels. And all good and dandy as that has been, we are, however, at the crossroads of our civilization, and it's about time people understood that the game has changed in the sense that the pathway to wealth ain't no longer through institutions of higher learning, but rather through so many unprecedented routes, pathways we couldn't have imagined just 2 decades ago. And that's what we're going to look into right now. So, but first, what's responsible for this drastic change in the game? There are 2 factors. One, the internet, of course. Now, the internet was the main game changer in that it leveled the playing field of information and education for everyone globally. So suddenly a kid in some village in Senegal, for example, had access to the same information as a kid growing up in South Carolina, or a kid in Portugal had the same access to knowledge as a kid in Papua New Guinea. And so suddenly how much knowledge anyone could acquire, irrespective of their geographical locations, ceased to be a thing of privilege and rather became a thing of choice. And 2-3 decades down the line, people for the most part are self-taught. You could literally teach yourself anything in the world. And as a result, universities and institutions of higher learning all around the world failed. The ground shifting underneath their feet. The only reason why you see have most universities and institutions of higher learning standing is because of the money they make from it. But if we were to be frank to ourselves, these places have no more essence in society like they used to have. The internet did a magic trick that no one foresaw. And I would dare submit to you that these 2 platforms, Google and YouTube, collectively would rank higher by a wide margin as a much better repository of knowledge than every institution of learning to have ever existed combined. And tell me if this isn't a miracle in Christian terms. It sure is, because there's not a thing you cannot learn these days. You can literally learn anything you want to. Languages, cooking, farming, filmmaking, law, psychology, history, whatever information you want is just a few clicks away. And you tell me, honestly, frankly, what purpose do the institutions of higher learning serve anymore? Now you realize I keep talking of institutions of higher learning, right? The reason for that is because for the most part, kids will need to acquire a certain degree of formal education. Not really because they wouldn't find this information online, but because they will need to build social skills, make friends and know how to interact with people, right? Those are very important. So there's always going to be a place for basic education. But what purpose To be frank, would institutions of higher learning be serving? Nada. And the second game changer which we are all experiencing is the transitioning of industries, of the workplace, from what it used to be for most of human history to now online. And then most of work is now being done online than it used to be traditionally. Now what this has done is that it has leveled the playing field for talents, such that companies do not rely anymore on geographical locations to hire. So you got a lot of companies in the States, for example, whose jobs are being outsourced to talents all around the world. So let's take IT, for example. Most of the jobs done for IT companies in the US as we speak are done by individuals in India who are well qualified. So suddenly the need for your resume and the name of whatever prestigious university on that resume doesn't matter anymore, because these jobs are done by people who for the most part are never even seen physically. But what do you think the company really wants? The company wants results, and it doesn't matter how or where those people studied at. All they need is that the work is impeccably done. And for the most part, you have people doing these jobs who are self-taught. Like I said before, the only reason these places, these institutions are still standing is because of the money they are making. But it's just a matter of time before people see behind the mask and understand that there is no more need for all these. And like they say, the proof is in the pudding. The online industry is now producing millionaires in their numbers in ways that traditional jobs can only dream of. Suddenly the millionaires of our time, those making the fast buck, are not the doctors or the engineers or the surgeons or the university professors. They are kids online doing some kind of thing. They are gamers online and content creators online and YouTubers online, IT engineers trading coins online, trading crypto online, cryptocurrency and all that online, and doing business online. These are the millionaires of our time. And so it tells you that the educational system we've known for so long is clearly not the path to wealth anymore. The game has changed. And if you want to stay in the game and play it good, then you have to change yourself. And so, with all this being said, how does one arm themselves and get ready for the future that lies ahead? The answer is simple. The way you get ready for the future we are moving into is to understand first and foremost that the era of careers, working a certain job for 40, 50 years like our parents did, that era is gone. It's gone like the university's era is gone. Because the job you're into right now may not exist or may not be of the same value in the next 5 years. You got to understand that. And to understand, therefore, that the way you get ready for the future is to take advantage of all this available knowledge on the internet and arm yourself with as much knowledge as possible. You want to grab information like a sponge. You want to grab knowledge like a sponge. You want to know a little bit of everything. You want to understand basic psychology and understand law and understand technology and understand how to run a business. You want to understand stocks. You want to know how to cook and how to teach and how to make videos and how to sell and how to do public talking. You want to equip yourself with as many skills as possible, all right? So that whatever direction the future takes us to, you will be equipped enough. Because like we have said, financial success of the future wouldn't depend if you went to university or not. It would depend solely on what value you can bring to the marketplace. And how valuable you're going to be will be determined by how well you equip yourself with knowledge. Because knowledge permits you to adapt to changing circumstances. The ideas, the words of Darwin come to my mind right now when he said, talking about natural selection, that the species that succeed, the species that survive, are neither the strongest, nor the fastest, nor the most intelligent, but rather those that are quick to adapt. I just paraphrased, all right? And so the future will be for those who adapt real fast, because the world will be changing real fast, such that if you do not adapt, you will be left behind. And the way you adapt is by equipping yourself with as much knowledge as you possibly can. Have a good one.